They are both a showpiece and a catalyst for change, but I think they should be understood within the separation but connection that they bring. So, as a showcase, you see everybody brought together within the power of sport. I've always said the opening ceremonies and the closing ceremonies is what the Youth Charter is always about. Irrespective of what you look like, where you come from, what you believe in, and what you sound like, people come together, unlike anything that pulls us together in the world, for a positive festival of human experience. And the cultural, the social, the economic, the political, geopolitical, but above all, memories of those performances reflecting such a divisive but collective, because sport unites and it divides. Passions can normally be high, but those who represent those medals have represented a very diverse experience. Once that flame goes out, its power for good becomes a completely separate challenge and opportunity. We have a United Nations and IOC Accord. That's not been easily secured, but we're not coordinating our efforts. Whereas many people ask, are we a movement, a sector, or an industry? I think we're all of the aforementioned. But for me, it's about having a global framework, a global model that can allow us to be able to reflect what Sport for Development is doing and what the Development for Sport is doing. Because I think that's where the policy literacy currently is. And we need to get it right, because it's not only happening in our country, what's happening locally in our communities is happening globally. And we need to understand that, reflect it. So at the Youth Charter, we've looked at the 2 Olympic cycles and Paralympic cycles, London 2012, Rio 2016. We've recognised the inequalities of a legacy opportunity for all, and that's why our campaign is making sure that our proposals and our report, which was launched 3 weeks ago and will be shared at the Y Sport conference today, is about how we can be more equitably, diverse and inclusive, not only in participation, but administration, in coaching, in every aspect of sport. And then I believe we can rebalance the imbalance. And yet, sport becomes something that can be a vaccine and an antidote, whilst recognising it isn't a treatment. The Social Coach Leadership Programme is the signature programme of the Youth Charter, quite simply because it represented over a quarter of a century of our work, me going into communities, not only being firstly, I think, recognising and acknowledging those extraordinary people who helped develop me out of my disaffection to realising my sporting success and excellence levels of gold medal winning, I suppose, achievement, and then bringing it back onto the very streets I've come from. Going to post-apartheid South Africa, where the late President Mandela's political genius of using sport as a vaccine and an antidote to give them a chance to get to grips with that new change that was happening in their country. I went into townships and again saw extraordinary people doing extraordinary things in an extraordinary way. So as we developed what was a common sense, empathetic, action learning, doing by learning, learning by doing in language, culture and behaviour, in understanding youth culture, we believed that there was a new generation of volunteer that needed to be recognised, rewarded and respected, resourced, supported and accredited. So the Social Coach Leadership Programme has gone through a number of changes, but from becoming something that was adapted to different sectors, we decided to put it together in the simple recognition that if we want to widen participation, we need more coaches. The coaching offer of late was by way of skills, technique and looking for winners. The Social Coach Leadership Programme is about engaging, equipping and empowering young people to be the best that they can be. A social coach's characteristics are equally inspired by our work with the Muhammad Ali Centre in Louisville, Kentucky, where for 10 years we looked at how we would contribute to the Muhammad Ali legacy. With his passing last year, he had 6 core values: confidence, conviction, dedication, giving, respect and spirituality. If you have one of those and you aspire to more, 2 or 3, or have all of them, that is what we're looking for in a social coach. Once you have those, we now have a means of a simple testimonial, where you've come from, where you are, and where you want to be. The online accreditation process quality assures and ensures that we can now deliver a new generation of diverse backgrounds and experiences, public, private, third sector, community sector, young and old, intergenerational, but are really delivering what I think the sports minister Tracy Crouch wanted, which was a bottom-up approach, and not seeing this third world aid delivered to communities. So the social coaches for me are our signature initiative. They are the key recommendation of our 2016 Games Legacy Impact Report, and with Sport England's Community Activation Fund, we're trying to now recruit, select and deploy 200 social coaches to improve the healthy active lifestyle potential of 3,000 young people. The most difficult target group are 14 to 18, because you know they've already made their decisions. But this is where the social coaches, very quickly we had an engagement with some young adults who said, we've had a story told to us. First thing you look for a social coach is, can you tell a compelling, inspirational story? Can you go into any environment, playroom, classroom, beyond the school gate? Somewhere to go, something to do, someone to show them. That someone to show them is a social coach, and they've got to have that inspirational ability to engage them with their experience, use the tools of sport, art, culture and digital to work with them, and then ultimately help them to aspire to be the best that they can be. No, they don't, but they've accepted that, and that's welcome. But they've equally, neither should they be doing that. That's for us to do. We who are involved and who are committed to the young people, the wider community, and society as a whole. I've watched the early beginnings of the sport for development movement and community development through sport and sport development in the community, and I think sometimes we become a bit distracted with the narrative, whereas for me, I just want people, yes, I want them to be more physical, more active, and more lifestyle, well-being, and beneficial, but we're going to need, as I said, the people who will help them do that. And I think policy will be better informed by way of the strategies and the resources, which aren't infinite, but we've got £1 billion of sugar tax money coming. We have £1 billion committed by local authorities, although it isn't statutory. We have £1 billion of lottery money. That's a lot of money, and we haven't even considered the private sector. So I think for me, it's how we, through what we call real-time data, that informs insights. These are all new words that certainly weren't there when I was a member of Sport England, but then it was just Sport for All. 700 projects, of which we're going to say no to 90% of them. I'm saying, how do we find the money to fund those 90% of projects? Because for me, all deserve that chance and opportunity of getting that 2.8 million inactive active. Well, we're in our 25th year. It has challenged me because people say, well, what does that look like come March 23rd next year when you reach that milestone? And I'm 60 then, so there's something happening and there's something in the air. But I think for us, the 2016 Games Legacy Impact Report sets out our recommendations. The executive summary has been shared far and wide. We are in the midst of a political election, of which we had a local election. We have a devolved power of, I think, political leadership in Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham gets this as a former Culture Secretary, Health Secretary, and Secretary to the Treasury. He should pretty much know what this could look like for the 2.8 citizens of Greater Manchester. Manchester's a sporting city, so we're looking to consolidate what we've done there and what has become local, global. The community campus is what we're going to share with everybody as part of our United Nations non-governmental organisation commitment to that global space of sport for development. But ultimately, it's the cultural framework with the UN Goals for Sustainable Development, providing the outputs and outcomes of measurement. But for us, the social coaches, we're aiming to have 1 million social coaches on each of the 5 continents over the next 4-year cycle, leading up to and including Tokyo 2020. Why I'm here at Y Sport is because we started a journey, and it started in Manchester, and it was the beginning of a journey where Y Sport wanted to do something different. So I decided I would resurface because it was fresh, it was innovative, it was going to be challenging. And again, back to that earlier question, do we think DCMS or Sport England are looking at this more strategically cohesive? Sport's unique because we can challenge. We look for how we can improve. Faster, higher, stronger is the Olympic core value of excellence that we strive and aim for. And I think it's healthy to have a spirited, at times, non-collectively agreed, but at least we have the ability to look, develop, and take forward what environments like this can provide. So the Y Sport journey, I think, is about where we can bring those diverse interests together, find common consensus, find out the new areas of working, network, but above all, go away back to our respective jobs with a little bit of energy in us, with a little bit of something between the software, between the ears. But I think ultimately on the basis that it isn't about just the talking and the doing, It's about delivering and doing something impactful. I think what inspired me this morning is that it is all to play for. Turning policy into action, I think in the trilogy of the Y Sport conferences that I've been part of, where I presented a vision, it had been researched, it had been evidenced, but that means nothing in policy terms unless you can translate into action. And this morning I think the ground has been well and truly prepared for an afternoon session that says, this morning was about policy, this afternoon is going to be about action.